And we are rolling in. Please let me know if you can hear me. Appears that we are working across all of our different platforms. Even Rumble appears to be working. So it's good to be with everybody on this Tuesday evening. And how are you all doing? I'm just moving around here, making sure everything is all right, making sure everything is working fine. If you would like to make a comment or a question over the course of this roll-in going free, you tag me as No White Guilt. We'll light my name up, and then I'm more likely to see what you have to say. If you disagree, then do so respectfully, and I will speak to your question or comment. You may financially gift, as is the case on every stream. You can do so over at Cash App. The description or the URL is in the description. You may even financially gift on Subscribestar, as we had someone do this past Sunday. I will read and celebrate that financial gift this coming Sunday. But if you go over to Subscribestar for a one-time financial gift, you may do so there. And I should be able to see it. Let me actually just move this over so I can put it with my... And you can find that URL in the description below. There we go. It's up and ready to roll. You may also financially gift on Entropy, which is up and running. And no longer showing a video, but it is up and running, as DB50-100 demonstrated this past Sunday in a spectacular way. Thank you so much, good brother. We love you. And... over at DLive and their cryptocurrency, over on Odyssey in their cryptocurrency or cash dollars. And of course, on Cash App, you may also use crypto. And if you want to financially gift anonymously with crypto, you can head on over to nowhiteguilt.org, click on the financial gift tab, and you will see the wallets that I use, as well as a snail mail address, should you have recourse to snail mail. I see the great Elaine Sabatino and Spud Ruckus, Cool Papa J Magic, Franklin, the Unstoppable, New Crofta, is that what that is? Matt is here. Iron Fist, tell your friends that we're together. Fair warning, I might receive a phone call during this roll-in that I will have to take. It won't be a terribly long phone call. But if it comes in, I will take it, and then I will be right back. So let me see. What shall we listen to? Should we have to take a little break? A brief telephone break. We can do maybe that. And therefore, it won't be too long. And I can even interrupt the bumper if I'm done and the bumper isn't. How does that sound? It's been a busy day for yours truly. Very busy day. A lot of things going on. That's how life is. And even went to the gyms today on top of all of that. Had a great workout, as I am wont to do. Well Done is here. Hello and welcome. Visionary Companion. Owning Anti-White Goblins. Jason S. is here. Hello. And do we already have somebody causing trouble? We have Gentile Gentleman is here. Hello and welcome, brother. Ace as well. The Real Vincent. Great to see you. Owning Anti-White Goblins. Welcome, welcome. And there's the Thunder from Down Under, Lunder. Great to see you, brother. Country and Bluegrass. Great to see you. Cindy Ben. Hello to you. Welcome, welcome. Let everybody know that we are live. I don't know how long we will be live. But while you're with me, it's going to be glorious. It's always glorious. What are we talking about today? Well, I figure we'll do a little contrast, shall we? We'll watch a little bit of Mark Dice, and he's our biggest unnamed an outreach team member, and just doing a magnificent job for white well-being, spreading anti-whiteism. Thank God. People like JK160 had conversations with him in his chat some time ago now. And you see how powerful it is, folks. You see how powerful it is. The seeding the lexicon in normal conversation, seeding the dialectics in normal conversation. People see the usefulness, they adopt them, and then they share them. And getting to people in increasingly wealthy and powerful positions, people with larger and larger audiences, is the key to promulgating the lexicon and dialectics, to put an end to the victimization of white people, anti-whiteism, which will benefit everyone of all races who live in the West, of all religions or no religion, who live in the West today. That is our position, and we can demonstrate it. It is empirical, it is logical, and it is reasonable. And we here, and we will see maybe a little bit later, a little bit of Mark Dice. We will see some of his latest videos celebrating the promulgation of anti-whiteism. It's a glorious, wonderful, lovely thing. King Dice. Very proud of him. Very, very proud of King Dice. And so we'll take a look at that. What are we contrasted with? Well, we are contrasted with the antagonist in the anti-white narrative. And that is a character. And this character is just a villain in an artificial narrative we call the anti-white narrative, because it always ends in the victimization of white people. And in that narrative, white people are inherently evil. They're inherently awful. And their very existence. And they need to live their totality of their lives as anti-white, as a sign of repentance, as a sign of hatred for their people, to make amends by way of white guilt and surrender and harming white people, etc. This is the anti-white narrative. And non-white people are all angels. They're all good all the time. And they're wrongly put upon. And if they ever do anything bad, it's because white people have either forced them to do it or created conditions where they had no other choice. This is the anti-white narrative that we live in. The anti-white narrative provides the population with a caricature, a character, the antagonist that pushes back from the white race. And this character in this fiction is a violent, unthinking brute who comes in various shades of ideology. They might be what the individual we're talking about today is a Nazi LARPing J-Sperg, somebody who just talks endlessly negative things about Jewish people, blaming everything on every Jewish person based on their birth rather than their thoughts or acts or deeds. Those same kind of people, they circulate and there's a lot of crossover where everything is blamed on black people as well based on their birth rather than their deeds or their thoughts. And then there are other versions, a little less popular than those antags. Generally, we call them all antags for antagonist, such as a militiaman. That's another example. Tea Party militiaman who's going to set up his own state and fight the United States and kill people in the process. People in the real world, just as you see with any other form of fiction or any other story, I guess, in fiction, whether it be a book or movie, people imitate what they see in art. You remember this is probably most clearly when you're a child. And all you have when you're a child to do is see a television show. I think every white little boy in America, at least, when Kung Fu Theater came on the weekend and then those shows wrapped up for the day, we were all suddenly Asian ninjas. and we headed out into the world ready to combat the villains that these Asian ninjas faced off against. People imitate it, and they find meaning in it. They find themselves in it. And by so doing, when this becomes something that adults do, when they imitate these monsters in these movies and these sitcoms, they end up doing something very powerful for anti-white oligarchs. They end up providing the real world material, the real world evidence of these ubiquitous fictions. In the anti-white narrative, these Nazi LARPers and their thoughts, these J-Spergs, are always on the rise. They are always getting worse. There's one under every bed. There's one in every closet. They're everywhere. And in the real world, these much smaller number of cranks who play this Sperg LARPing role, they feel empowered by that. They like that depiction in media and movies and television of this intimidating, this scary villain. Of course, the villain is always written to be strong, written to be a threat, so that it's a worthwhile object to be defeated by the good guys. But they fall for this. And there are other factors. There are many other factors, not the least of which that resistance to our victimization as white people inside this anti-white narrative is throttled to death by J-Spergs. And J-Sperg stands for Jew-Sperg. These are people who blame all Jewish people on the basis of their birth for all that is awful in the world. And they do the same with blacks. And they'll do the same with any race, honestly. These people are actually few in number, but they are maniacal and they are witless, and they think they have, and they're low IQ people, and they're also immoral people. And whenever you have contact with them, you find this out. Now, this group of people are in stark contradiction to us, and they attack me and my community endlessly because we work to put an end to the victimization of white people. They use the victimization of white people to advocate for harming non-white people like Jews and blacks. We invite people of all races and backgrounds to side with us, and many have, against anti-whiteism, to put an end to it. Because number one, it's immoral. Condemning someone on the basis of their birth is immoral. And number two, anti-whiteism is white erasing Western civilization right out from underneath of all of us. And these things that we've come to cherish, the mores and norms of the West, for all of us, of all races, are being wiped away. And something inverted is being put in place. Something tyrannical, something very ugly and harmful to civil society and what the West always was. J-Sperging is an easy trap for people to fall into. White people, I'm going to read this story in just a minute, and probably this guy, Paul Meter, probably looked out into the world and saw the very real discrimination and persecution of white people, discrimination against and persecution of white people, particularly white males. It's everywhere. Everyone knows it. People can claim, or they can cite the anti-white narrative all they want, but we know what the real world is. We just at least 2 times a week, we go through, for years and years, it's everywhere. We can go through stories of the discrimination. We go through stories of the persecution. We go through stories of the double standards. The persecution and discrimination against non-white people in the West lives in the fiction that we read and we watch. And our subconscious minds can't tell the difference between fiction and reality. So those things end up living with us as though it is reality. But when we look out at the real world, we see there are no programs to discriminate against Blacks or Jews in companies, at colleges, at government, state and county and federal. There's no such thing. None of those things exist anywhere. In fact, the anti-whites invent that the concepts like this invisible discrimination to try to make real in our tangible world what is real in the fiction world, and we end up believing is real, as I say, as a consequence. The actual discrimination and persecution is everywhere. And then to make matters worse, we are forced, under the penalty of losing your job, being thrown out of your family, being thrown out of your school, having your wife or husband or girlfriend or boyfriend leave you. The pain is endless. We are forced to articulate that no, even though the actual discrimination is being inflicted on primarily white males, we're forced to say that no, we have this great benefit by being white and male, and that everybody else is struggling and having a hard time. As our Black friend gets the loan for business, that's set aside for Blacks. As NASCAR, as Mark Dice points out in the video we'll watch, is setting aside money, massive amounts of money and scholarships and opportunities at NASCAR for everyone but white people. That's the reality of the world. So Paul Meter looked out at the world and he said, wow, there's no chance for a guy like me. There's no hope for a guy like me. No matter how hard I try, I'm not going to get what I deserve. No matter how much of myself I invest, no matter how many talents I bring forward, there's just no hope. And that's how it is for all white males, whether they will admit that or not, unless they're too low IQ to be able to realize that. I mean, you'd have to be really special. And then they look out into the world and they say, well, how do you resist this? What are you supposed to do to resist this? And people like me, people like this community, we're silenced into oblivion. He can't find us. He can't. And if he comes anywhere close to us, if he or some other white guy out there gets anywhere close to us, well, then there is this veritable phalanx of Nazi LARPing J-Spergs that are ready at a moment's notice to step up and tell him anything that they think he needs to hear to stay away from us. That's how they work. So he ends up faced with the fiction produced by the identifiable anti-whites that tell him, you are to be this villain. Here's the way you're supposed to talk. Here's the way you're supposed to dress. Here's the way you're supposed to look. Here's what you're supposed to strive for. There's that phone call. So I will be right back. And we are back. Please let me know if you can hear me okay. So to pick up where I left off, looks out into the world and sees that he's supposed to look a certain way, act a certain way, think a certain thing. And then if he finds his way anywhere near our community, he is met with this phalanx of Nazi LARPing J-Spergs who will tell him whatever they think he needs to hear to prevent him from hearing what we have to say. Because they have fallen for this same disease, this thought disease, and it's born out of selfish individualism. So it's not just a matter of outsiders providing, like the media, providing an entertainment about how you're supposed to resist, but it's also the fact that they have this deep selfish individualistic mindset, and that essentially provides the environment, the mental and spiritual environment in which this sort of very selfish, individualistic, just get the bees out of my room and then I'm good, rather than a broader view about an individual well-being by way of our people's well-being. So these people then fall into this trap. Fortunately, because of us, the good people who have fallen into that trap, smart people who fall into that trap, we have rescued. We have taken them out of that environment, a great many people. We have claimed from that environment. We have redeemed them as a priest redeems sinners, because their initial desire was what was in keeping with their hearts, which was to put an end to our victimization, not to harm anyone else. So they always feel at odds with those environments. They always feel out of place. They always feel like it's discordant for them. So I'm very proud to say that we have taken a great many people away from that poison and brought them back to something that was in keeping with their spirit. Now, some folks, there's no redeeming them. Some folks are so base, they're so low IQ'd, they're so immoral, that type of an environment really serves that sort of a mentality. Those are the ones who declare war on me and my community, because we are that contrast that they don't want others to see. We show the way that you can put an end to the victimization of white people in a way that works, in a way that matters, in a way that incorporates people of all backgrounds, in a way that benefits people of all backgrounds across the West. And that puts the lie that they make, the pretext that they're doing it for white people, on full display. Because if their concern was for white people, then they would immediately abandon that which is illogical, harming other groups of people, and that which generation after generation after generation have demonstrated fails to do anything good for white people. All it ends up doing is harming innocent people. And in the decades that I've been involved in this, I have had the entire panoply of emotions when it comes to people who get sucked into, especially the Nazi LARPing J-Sperging variety. Maybe even more, to be more accurate, the J-Spergs. The people who just really are shadows and filled with desire to speak ill of for the outcome that results of speaking ill of a group of people or an individual. Sometimes these people like to lie. Sometimes they like to lie all the time. But sometimes they like to lie and say, oh, I'm just pointing out things that I'm observing, as though you would be okay with a woman telling your family and coworkers that you had raped her. Whether you had or not, it was just something she's observed. You'd be okay with that because the outcome is just totally immaterial. So you're just nothing but liars. And this is what they look like. They're not fit, they're not healthy mentally or physically. These are unwell people. And they trade in what we refer to as white negativity, speaking ill of other groups of people. Again, with the pretext that this is that activity is for the good of white people. Never benefits white people. It never challenges the idea that these people love to share of total Jewish domination of the world. It never challenges that power that they claim is there. But sometimes it does ending up murdering innocent people, which is as everything they do, a 1,000% benefit to anti-white oligarchs, and the exact same inverse harm to Western kind white people and those who are fighting to put an end to anti-whiteism and the victimization of white people. Harms us every single time. And so this guy, he comes in to tell his story without even having to know him. He comes in, he finds these communities of people, these small, deranged communities of people who want to just endlessly say negative things about Black people and Jewish people and all these other different groups of people. Just endlessly, this is what they do. And when you are presented with this formula, all the evil in the world is in this, and you could have nirvana on the other side of it, you've just set up a very simple formula for nirvana. Get rid of these other human beings, and then you have nirvana. And occasionally, these individuals go from being just useless, low IQ, immoral losers into very useful agents of anti-white oligarchs and the anti-white narrative. And that is this Paul Meter. Have a good look at that guy's face on the thumbnail. Maybe I'll pull it up here as well. That is that chinless. In one set of pictures, he's shaven, and you can see that he's got no chin whatsoever. This obese, disgusting looking, total just like tiny chin, like that's this big. And then in other pictures, he's a neckbeard. Absolute scum. Those are the people that come after us. If you're in my community, if you're with us, those are the people that are on the other end. Those are the people with the big gallant statues from our people's past. Revolting little gremlin demons who will just slander the shit out of you like on Twitter, Gab, the cesspool that is. Right now, there's a brand new attack on yours truly with the most insane, outrageous claims by some of these J-Sperging demons. They should be, they're so low character, bad actors, that they should be celebrating, but they don't have the courage to celebrate what this monster did. They should be owning it, but they don't have the courage to own it. If the past is any instruction for the present and future, they'll be saying this is fake. They'll be saying this never happened, or that he was actually something else, because that's how awful these people actually are. And folks should know. If it weren't late, I would be yelling about this. Folks should really know that there is an enormous difference. They are actually focused constantly on pointing out the ugly things that individuals of other races do. and hating them. We are focused in love for our people to put an end to our victimization, which we know will benefit everyone in Western civilization. There's an enormous difference, night and day. Let me see what you all are, just have a quick look at what you all are saying, because there's a potential for this to be volatile, mercurial, because J-Spergs are likely to show up to come and defend J-Sperging. Promethean Healing, great to see you, brother. He said, just had dinner with no white guilt. Amen to that. Red Dog is here. The puppies. Archangel is here. Archangel is here. We had somebody who correctly had the comment deleted saying he lives in the same area and this guy had enough. If you have enough of the victimization of white people, then how does victimizing black people and thereby scores of millions of white people, how does that help white people? It doesn't. Not at all. Never has. Every single time this happens, there are new waves of censorship for those like myself who are in love, demanding an end to the victimization of white people. There are laws that are immediately moved to be put in place that further white erase Western norms, Western notions of jurisprudence, law and order, civility, immediately go into place that further white erase us from our own civilization and our ideas from our own civilization. There are retaliatory attacks. Maybe it'll be your son will be out just hanging out with his buddies, and they're just out for a little bit of fun some evening, and some anti-white monster who otherwise would have just driven by, who otherwise wouldn't have cared about them going down the road, is now going to decide it's time for retaliation, and he's going to drive them over. He's going to run them down and kill them, or put them in wheelchairs, or make them vegetables. Does that sound like a good idea? And saying, by the way, if you were a low IQ son of a bitch, well, that would have happened anyhow. That would not have happened if it's not, if the murders didn't happen. If the murders are cited and it happens, then it happened because of the murders. White people are going to suffer. Millions of us. Some of us will be by way of these retaliations at the bar. There'll be a white woman, maybe your sister, who will be at fraternity party. Some anti-whites there, various races, it doesn't matter. We'll see her and think that we're going to get back at these white supremacists, at this white race. And we're going to treat her like an animal and just rape the living hell out of her. That's what Paul Meter did. None of these people, by the way, none of these people, these J-Spergs, you can see what they look like every single time. That's what they look like every single time. Every single time. None of them are brave enough to actually meet somebody. This guy was a coward. This guy was a loser. And he got being a coward, though, and a loser didn't mean he had to end up being a monster. You J-Spergs made him into a monster. You did it. And you J-Spergs are responsible for the consequences. So I side with the black families. who lost their loved ones. And my thoughts and prayers are with them. Even though I'm sure in the video that CNN has, there are going to be things said that I disagree with. My thoughts and prayers are with them for their loss, for these innocent people who were at the Dollar General. This monster tried to go to a college university, or college first, black university, to murder a bunch of black students studying. Are those the folks that you're saying he had enough of? And my thoughts are for his loved ones who didn't deserve to have their son go down this path and be turned into a monster by the J-Spergs. And my hope for him is that he's in hell. Let's take a look first at what it says here. Federal hate crime investigation is underway after a white gunman with a swastika emblazoned assault-style rifle killed 3 black people at a Dollar General store in Jacksonville, Florida. You know, why didn't he go down? Why didn't this fat loser head on down, J-Sperging loser with his swastika emblazoned rifle? Why didn't he head down to the ghetto, where at least he might have found some armed people to shoot back? It'd been higher likelihood there, especially if they were, say, out on the corner trading drugs, trafficking drugs, or prostitutes. Might have actually even done the community that lived there some benefit by having it out with those kind of people. Then at least maybe he would have shown some courage. No, he went to a university and then was easily turned away there by a guard, I assume, who was armed. So for all the people, all the anti-whites out there that want to blame the right to self-defense, most likely what we have here is a guard at this black university who was exercising his right to self-defense and had a firearm on him, which is why this cowardly, demonic piece of shit decided to not have it out with him and instead go find some unarmed, innocent people at a Dollar General. The shooting claimed the lives of Angela Carr, Anult Joseph, also known as AJ, and is that Jared Gallion? Gerald? The gunman, identified as 21-year-old Ryan Christopher Palmeter, left racist writings and used racial slurs before launching the attack Saturday and then killing himself, Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters said. Also, the killing of himself, didn't want to get into a shootout where he might get hit and feel the pain that his victims felt. He just wanted to blow his own head off so he wouldn't feel anything. Didn't want to feel pain because he's such a soft, fat, demonic piece of shit. This is the kind of hero that the J-Spergs produce. So not only do they run off good people, like we were talking about them running off Jared George, not only do they run off good people, I swear to, I despise the J-Spergs. I absolutely, if there is any group of people that is deserving of the deepest, absolute deepest acrimony, disgust, contempt, it's J-Spergs. This is all they do, is harm the white race. Sometimes they harm other races like this, but all they do is harm the white race. The people who take up J-Sperging, they ruin their lives. They run off all the good white people who would otherwise want to participate in putting an end to our victimization and thereby perpetuate anti-whiteism. I have zero tolerance for this vermin. Then they go out and they do something like this. We're talking about our victimization. This is going to be thrown in Donald Trump's face. This very specific thing is going to be thrown into Donald Trump's face, as though Trump is responsible for it. Just can't see the ramifications, and they don't care. They're too low IQ. They're too immoral. Paul Meter had worked at a Dollar Tree from October 21 to July 22. There's no question. So probably the only, he didn't know many places outside of his bedroom at his father's house. Like the place he worked at for a little while, probably a couple fast food places, probably drove by the Black University. Quote, there's no question the killings were racially motivated, the sheriff told CNN. Quote, he hated blacks, and I think he hated just about everyone that wasn't white, Waters said. He made that very clear, close quote. Now, every one of us who have to stand before our brothers and sisters and broach the subject of objecting to our victimization in society are going to be face to face with white people who are feeling white guilt over this. How can we object to our victimization when these monsters go out and murder innocent non-white people? It just serves anti-whiteism every single time. I just don't understand how anyone of any sense or compunction would associate with J-Spergs, would have anything to do with them. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was talking with Patrick. When they show up in any conversation with you, when they show up and they want to just badmouth Jews, they want to bellyache endlessly about Jews, you give them one chance and then you immediately block them. Do not tolerate a bunch of back and forth with them, because what might be happening now to us is that we get shadow banned by the back and forth, by that going back and forth with them is a conversation with them, even if we're disagreeing. That negativity, and then we suffer as a consequence. Our reach is also limited as a consequence. Genuinely, folks, I mean, this is how do we, or can't everyone see that this makes the work of putting it into our victimization infinitely harder? That's why that all sane people can, all moral people can. That's why the only conclusion for the rest is the LARPing and low IQ and immorality. And they're really lucky, the J-Spergs, really lucky that anti-whites are in charge. Because if I were in charge, you'd be wishing the anti-whites were back in charge. I see what you do as nothing but harm to the white race. Every one of your deeds and thoughts and acts and words harm the white race. And every now and again, one of your psychotic number will go out and harm non-white people also. The killer was armed with an AR-15 style rifle. Was it an AR-15 or not? And a handgun, which were both legally purchased, the sheriff said. Yeah, also further jeopardizing our right to self-defense. That's what he also did. You going to still defend him now? Those wretched curs in Florida that everybody over there in the UK embraced and said, no, we can't have Jason. We got to have these wretched, low IQ'd curs. Immediately, the ramification, all white Floridians suffer as a consequence of the law passed that was written in response to their activities. It's just endless. It's just endless. The Justice Department is investigating the shooting as a hate crime and an act of racially motivated violent extremism. Attorney General Merrick Garland said. So all the way up to this anti-white Garland, they're talking about it. The slaughter of everyday Americans going about their everyday lives, is the latest in a series of shootings targeting Black people, including at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, last year, at a historically Black church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. Just keep proving the anti-white narrative, you vile pieces of shit. He went to a historically Black campus and another store beforehand. The shooter, who lived with his parents, like almost all of them do, until they end up getting financed by anti-whites. And then they get their own place for a little. Then they go into hiding and they live in somewhere else. Lived with his parents in Orange Park in Clay County, left his home around 11:39 a.m. and headed to Jacksonville in the neighboring county. Surveillance footage shows at around 12:23, the suspect pulled into a Family Dollar store. He entered the store, purchased some, actually, didn't he? Oh, maybe this is the first store. Purchased some items and then returned to his vehicle. At about a minute later, a security vehicle entered the lot and parked in front of the store. The suspect eventually drove away. Oh, so twice he was confronted with people exercising their right to self-defense, and he was aware of that they were armed or likely armed. His perception was that they were armed. Security at the school, security at the other Dollar General. And then this cowardly bastard fled. $12:48, he stopped at Edward Waters University, predominantly Black area. A student flagged down campus security when they saw the shooter because he looked out of place. I guess being white, he looked out of place. The man immediately got in his vehicle and started to drive away after being confronted by a security officer who followed him until he left campus. We don't know, obviously, what his full intentions were, but we do know that he came here right before going to Dollar General. Members of our university security team reacted almost immediately. I think the reports are in less than 30 seconds after he made contact and drove off our campus. University police followed him out of the lot around 12:58 and flagged down a sheriff's office saying there was a suspicious person on campus. Florida will give $1 million to Edward Waters University to help the school strengthen security in the wake of the attack. Sounds like this university, this Black university, already has a superbly functioning security system. This worked beautifully to get rid of a genuine threat. But they're now going to be given $1 million more. I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and guess that they receive other forms of federal and state money that they don't have to pay back to the taxpayers. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there aren't any white colleges that receive anything whatsoever. But now they're going to receive an extra $1 million thanks to this J-Sperg monster. An extra $1 million of our dollars. I hate J-Spergs. So I hate J-Spergs. You all, I swear to God, you murder these people, innocent people. And how many of us, you murder how many of them here? And how many of us are going to be murdered as a consequence of your acts? How many of us are going to go into jail? How many of us are going to be silenced, socio-politically silenced? How many of us are going to have marriages lost over the arguments that this fuels? How many of us are going to have families broken over this, that this story, along with others, fuels? We're not going to allow our HBCUs to be targeted by these people, DeSantis said. What else could he say? What kind of a position do you put a politician in when Trump has to disavow white people because of this? Are you going to be angry with Trump? When Trump has to not say anything positive about white people because of this and acts like this, you're going to be angry with Trump? Despite the suspect's questionable appearance on campus, the sheriff said there was no firm evidence that he planned to carry out an attack at the university. He had the opportunity to do so, and he did not, Waters told CNN. Because of that armed security, I'd be willing to put money down that he saw the security before they saw him, because he would be looking for security while they wouldn't be looking for a white J-Sperging psychopath come to kill people, innocent people. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've been dealing with this for so many years. I do not know how there's so much energy to continue with the J-Sperging in these circles. It's like no amount of failure, no amount of harming the white race ever affects them at all. None. They'll be like piranha over me telling the truth about this and them. And I'm going to tell everybody listening, of all races, whether you care about white people or not, you don't like white people, it is 100% legitimate and righteous and beautiful for white people to put an end to our victimization. This little motherfucker, he has nothing to do with us. He hates us. He and his ilk hate us because we prove that their pretext is a lie. They're not doing any of this for white people. None of it, because all it does is harm white people. Harming non-white people harms white people every time. Harming non-white people harms those like myself in this community who in love stand up and say, enough of the victimization of white people, the victimization. Enough of it. I'm going to tell everybody, law enforcement listening, little church ladies listening, Nazi LARPing losers, and these J-Spergs that want to blame everything on Jews that's bad in the world, on all Jews on the basis of their birth. and these people who just want to speak negatively, endlessly about all black people, they have nothing to do with white well-being. They're not working for white well-being. They couldn't give a shit about white well-being, because if they did, they would see how harmful all of that is to white well-being. It is legitimate and moral and righteous and godly for white people to be proud of who we are, to stand up for ourselves, to celebrate our traditions, to want to perpetuate our civilization, and to put an end to this goddamn victimization. And these folks, they're not with us. They don't represent that. They have a different objective. And that objective is to harm non-white people in one variety or another. That's their objective, not ours. I'm done with having them hijack the defense of Western kind. I'm done with having them hold us like hostages, especially these J-Spergs. Let the government lock them all up. That would still be nicer than what I would do, because I've had it. I have had it with the hardships it causes, Western kind. I don't know whether that's two or one of the people that were murdered. One of Galleon's relatives, Sabrina, said the grieving family doesn't know how to tell Galleon's 4-year-old daughter that her father is never coming home. That is sick. So he's got he had a 4-year-old daughter. Now he's dead. She had a father. Just talking about I talked about it enough. Let's see what they say.
Was behind us, but evidently it's not. You was a coward. You went in there and shot these innocent people for nothing that you didn't even was behind us, but evidently it's not. You was a coward. You was behind us, but evidently it's not. You was a coward.
He's probably saying something like racism was behind us, but it's not. Let's see if I can make it. I'm guessing.
Was behind us, but evidently it's not. You was a coward. You went in there and shot these innocent people for nothing that you didn't even know.
Family members of victims reacting to the racially motivated mass shooting in Jacksonville Saturday that took the lives of 3 black people.
Angela Michelle Carr, 52 years old. Anolt Joseph, or AJ Laguerre Jr., 19 years old. And Gerald Deshaun Galleon, 29 years old.
Sunday, authorities revealed new details about the events leading up to the shooting. Investigators say before the gunman opened fire at a Dollar General store, he showed up in the parking lot of a historically black university nearby and was turned away by security for refusing to identify himself.
So our campus security officer did confront the perpetrator, and the perpetrator immediately got in his vehicle and started to drive away.
Total just.
Minutes later, the gunman arrived at the Dollar General. Deputies released this edited surveillance video showing the shooter opening.
Look at this piece of shit. My God. You know, and they're all playing those video games all the time, those first-person shooters. Then they go out there and they think there's some kind of hero. You're a real hero. You're burning down somebody's wife or daughter, certainly a daughter, girlfriend, who knows, in the parking lot. I'm kind of, this has been going on for so many years. I'm just kind of,
fire on the first victim in her car in the parking lot. The edited clip then shows the gunman entering the store.
look at this. Look at this. Look at the way he walks too. This is the people that endlessly slander me. This guy. These are the people who endlessly make up the most outrageous things. That's him. And when it's a female, you throw a wig on it, and that's exactly what it looks like. You can leave the whiskers too.
He shot the second and third victims. Shortly after, investigators say the gunman texted his dad.
The suspect texts his father and says, "Use a screwdriver to get into my room." The father enters the room and finds a last will and testament of the suspect along with a suicide note on his laptop.
11 minutes after the shooting started, officers entered the store and heard a gunshot, presumably when the gunman shot and killed himself.
Okay, so as soon as he hung out until the cops showed up, then he decided to cowardly blow his own head off because he didn't want to have a shootout with him. And he didn't want to go to jail because that would be hard, and he's too much of a soft little bitch.
According to deputies, investigators are now combing through his writings.
The manifesto is quite frankly the diary of a madman. He was just,
I believe it,
completely irrational. But with his irrational thoughts, he knew what he was doing.
Authorities say the shooter, who lived with his parents in Orange Park, had no criminal arrest history.
Does he have hearing protection on?
He legally purchased and owned the 2 guns used in the mass shooting. The Justice Department is now taking part in the investigation, calling it a hate crime and an act of racially motivated violent extremism.
Father, today we pray for healing, healing for the families, healing for generations.
And you're going to have, of course, anti-white race hustlers that will move in. They do this all the time. I'm not saying this guy is. I don't know who he is. Because you're certainly going to have legitimate community members who are going to step up for the purpose of mourning and helping people in the community to heal from it. But you're going to have anti-white race hustlers that will show up and they'll say, oh, it's that guy over there, the clean-cut guy that in love wants to put an end to the victimization of white people. It's because of folks like him that monsters like this show up. I think we should treat J-Spergs and Nazi LARPers like the worst of the anti-whites. They're worse than Antifa. How often does Antifa, do their acts result in entire statewide laws that harm white people? How often does the acts of Antifa result in arguments that can be made against politicians that compel them then to disavow the totality of the white race and doing anything to put an end to our victimization? Never. These people serve it up all the time.
Curses.
Sunday, friends, family, and community members gathered at a vigil for the victims.
We just thought it'd be appropriate to bring AJ a little something.
Gerald was a fun, loving young man. He was very active in my granddaughter's life. She loved her daddy, and her daddy loved her. He didn't miss a beat in her life.
One state lawmaker says she's having a hard time processing the senselessness of it.
That was someone planning and executed 3 people.
Yeah.
So from years ago to listening to people say, you know, as a Black people, we've come a long way. After what happened yesterday, I question that and say, have we really?
Do we have to have any
So you have black woman at the beginning saying she thought racism was behind us. And then you have this other woman, different black woman at the end, saying essentially the same thing. Well, again, my thoughts and prayers to the families, especially this black little girl, this 4-year-old little girl who had a father in her life, and he's never coming home again because of J-Spergs. I'm going to see what y'all are saying. We'll take a quick look at a comparison. What we do versus what these people who claim to be standing up for whites. They're not doing anything for us. They never have. Never have. It's always resulted in harm for us. Sloths is here. Great to see you, good brother. Anti-whiteism has only been put ahead of America not negatively behind it. Yeah, exactly. Beautifully said. Southern Thunder is here. Franklin says that apparently Al Sharpton gave a speech about this. He believes, thinks he has heard. Carmat says he's thinking about the white little boy who was shot. Well, let me ask you this. When white people, when you see those videos of white people being attacked by anti-whites, it can be of any race, doesn't matter. Because the way they're born is irrelevant. Whether or not they're anti-white is what matters. When you see them being attacked, do you complain about the races of the people doing the attacking? Or are you concerned about them? Are you thinking of the little white boy right now? I'm not saying that you're doing this. I'm just asking questions. Are you thinking of the white little boy right now as an insult to the black little girl who just lost her father? I hope not. If you're thinking of that white little boy when that happens and not the race of the person that did that to the white little boy, and you're saying we need to put an end to anti-whiteism because it dehumanizes white people, because it white erases our norms of law and justice, the application of the law, the punishment of villains. If you're saying that and you're concerned about the little boy then that's righteous. That's beautiful. But if when that happened, you said, well, this race of people over here are problematic for all of these different reasons, and that's why that happened, that's why they need to be gone, then you are part of the problem. Now, I'm not saying that for you personally. I'm taking your comment, which could be meant any number of ways. I can't know. I'm just reading it on a screen. And I'm using it as a foil to make a point. And I hope that it was made for those who needed to hear it. All right. Somebody else who appropriately had the comment deleted said, apologizing. Stop apologizing. First part of the comment. I'm not apologizing for anything. Our white positive movement of people of all backgrounds we own none of that. We are endlessly attacked by J-Spergs, the kind of people that went out and committed this murder. Or murderers, and ruined the lives associated with the people murdered. So I'm not apologizing for it. I condemn the murders, and I mourn for the people who were murdered and their families. Especially, it was made very personal when you say there's a little girl, a little 4-year-old. She's going to be very aware that dad was alive one minute, That's going to make me. And now he's gone. You know, if the reclamation of our destiny and putting it into our victimization takes another 20, another 75 years, another 150 years, however long it ends up taking, it's going to be as a result of J-Spergs and Nazi LARPers. Because I would be able to speak to entire rooms of ordinary, patriotic, conservative-minded folks, even white people who are so nervous about defending the white race because of their white guilt from anti-whiteism. I'd be able to stand up in front of them, and there wouldn't be any pushback if it weren't for the Nazi LARPers and J-Spergs. And then this person goes on to say that we don't care. Well, you must be a J-Sperg. How many lies have you told about me and this community? You don't care when innocent people are murdered? And it's not about men of the West know how to be a man. Males and boys, I know they're fond of saying like white boy summer. They are boys. We're men. And we grieve when innocent people are murdered because we look at ourselves in the mirror and that's the kind of person we want to be. This is what I've seen over all these years. I have these arguments, I have these debates, I try to give benefit of the doubt to a bunch of these people. And then I say, you obviously know it's going to lead to this. And then when it leads to that, they don't want to talk about it. Why don't you want to own it? Why don't you want to own it and celebrate it? This is what all of your talk results in. Why don't you want to own it and celebrate it? Yeah, man, this is what you did. You all never do that. Franklin's telling Democrat Poop City to tag me. So if you're trying to reach me, you got to tag me so I can see it. I am a Virginian to the core, to answer the question. All right. Yeah, I'm not seeing. Oh, there was a question about whether or not Russia is, and I guess specifically the government, if it's anti-white, and it obviously is. They would have spoken out against, or they would have been able to speak out against the anti-white oligarchy in America, the UK, etc., as a way to condemn them morally. They're watching what's being done, and they're silent. They're silent on it. But you also have to remember that another countries don't live in this nursery room that we create inside of Western civilization. They live in the jungle. It is all kill and be killed and power dynamics and etc. You cannot look at the play between states, countries, from the perspective of a person with friends. This is one of the reasons why so many females are not suited to be in positions of leadership, because they view everything as an association of friends. We just heard that Nikki Haley, talking about how this country or that country is our friend and we have to do this because that's what friends do. White Excellence saying he's, to be fair to him, he doesn't celebrate anything that sends our people to jail. A lot of our people are going to be going to jail as a consequence of this act. One of these days, if this continues, one of these days, they will come and round up people who object, whites who object to anti-whiteism, and maybe some of the non-white people who object to anti-whiteism, if they don't disavow, which they would most likely do because it would keep their ass out of the victimization that we're going to suffer. They round us right up. They're effectively doing that in South Africa, my opinion, of course. Pants says, this occurred, but you are still making a difference. No white guilt. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I can see all of the comments that get deleted. Mestizo Carf is here. Great to see you, brother. First Last is here. Wonderful to see you. Helios Abbott, Davey, Azimuth Clark. So many champions. So many champions. These are good folks who don't want, not only do they not want to harm people of other races, but they know that their work for white well-being will benefit people of other races because they come to the West since it is the West. And the West needs white people, Westmen, for it to be the West. If it keeps getting white erased, it won't be the kind of place that, I don't know, maybe one of these black people who were murdered, maybe they have a relative who was a very proud American and went and served in the military as a firefighter or a police officer because they loved America and they wanted it to be the way that it is. Well, they're not going to be happy with an America that is increasingly white erased. So these people are champions. Trees and seas, hello to you. All right, we're going to get on to what we're doing, the difference that we're making. And I want you to remember something. I really want you to remember something. I dedicated my life at 12 years of age to helping free white people of anti-whiteism so that every single white person out there could get closer to their potential. I was 12 years old, and I understood that. So that they would, in the lives that they led, with the connections that they had, be able to condemn our victimization with the amount of power that they wield, which could be a lot or a little, the amount of wealth that they have, which could be a lot or a little, the positions of authority that they're in, which could be very powerful or not very powerful, so that they could have these arguments in the places where the West was lost. As I am wont to say, the lathe, the water cooler, the soccer game, the dinner table. Over many years, I submitted myself to the wisdom of older people, white sympathetic people who were wise and intelligent. And I added my own ideas, and I used the scientific method to ascertain how we could undermine the psychological warfare that's called anti-whiteism that's waged against us. That's what it is. Psychological warfare. It controls our minds. And we have had enormous success. You might not be able to understand it, the power of concepts, but maybe you can understand that the central concept, the anti-white concept of racism, is what defeated Western civilization. I want you to think about that. Not just the unipower United States with all the weapons and etc., but all of the West, all white countries, defeated by a single concept. That's the power of words, the power of concepts. And I, for decades, have been pushing concepts against this sea of J-Spergs and Nazi LARPers, telling me that it could never be done. And then when I would do it, when it would work, they would say, you didn't do it. And then finally, in about 2017, real heroes started joining me here on the internet. And now what they have done in just a handful of years has absolutely circled the globe in victory for white well-being. And it continues, and it's speeding up. And our numbers, our activists, are growing. And we're reaching more people, reaching people in various positions of power. And then they too, like Mark Dice, spreading these concepts that undermine the psychological warfare that's waged against us. Now rewind for a minute. I came in the white sympathetic sphere, per se, 17 years old, 18 years old. And these other J-Spergs and Nazi LARPers and the cravens that want to go build a grave for themselves to go and hide in somewhere until the storm passes over, and the secessionists who think they're going to start their own, they had all been around for generation after generation after generation and losing. And I evaluated how they lost, why they lost. And still to this day, it amazes me that we continue to have success after success, and there are still any of these people left that continue to endorse vehicles and ideologies whose inevitable consequence every single time is violence and murder of innocent people. There's no more arguments anymore. There are no more arguments. It's clear. This is not about rationale. It's not about logic. It's not about empirical evidence. It's about unwell people who are holding back the resistance to our victimization. Okay, we have a couple things here. We'll put Mark Dice up so we can see our victories, actual victories. And let folks say, oh, that's not a victory, or he didn't do it, or whatever else. Oh, he has a giant what do they call them? Oh my God. Machiavelli sucks is here. Spartan Lambda is here. Great to see you. Now I'll give you I'm going to answer these questions. I'm going to look and see if there are any financial gifts, but I'm going to give you a very real world example. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but there is a group of conservative minded people that are going to be meeting at some point in the future, and was contemplating going and sharing white well-being. Will it be easier to talk about white well-being with these people, or harder given these murders of innocent people by a J-Sperging monster who said he was doing it for the white race? He wasn't doing it for the white race. He was doing it because he hated black people and he could get at them. He probably couldn't find any Jews to get at, so he could get at black people. They were around him. So seriously, if you are an honest person, is that going to make it easier for me or harder for me? Janice is here. Hello to you. Green Lord. Iron Fist. Vivek says reverse racism is racism. Now, we don't use that concept because that is the central concept that took down Western civilization. Its definition lives where? Not in a dictionary. This is the big error that our conservative brothers and sisters make. They think that they can open up the rule book and say, oh, no, no, no. It says right here, it can be any race that practices racism. It cannot. Because the definition lives in the minds of the hundreds of millions across Western civilization. And that definition is that it's something that evil white people do to innocent non-white people. It is Sauron's ring. You cannot put it on and wield its power. You can only destroy it. That's what we have to do. And we do that with anti-white, anti-whiteism. Now back to your question. I think we can get him to say reverse racism is anti-whiteism. Well, that would be great. I'm thinking that when he loses would be a good time to reach out to him. Captain Morgan is here. Hello to you. Axiom is here. Hello. When he loses, I think it's going to be easier to reach him. But yeah, you can try now. Of course, this concept of reverse racism is also a anti-whiteism. It's a meme pathogen. That means it's harmful to white people and our well-being. And it also, its prevalence and its spread proves what I'm saying about the definition of racism. Even in white people's heads, they will say, oh, that's reverse racism, which is an immediate proof that they believe that racism is something that white people do to non-white people. And so what is racism? What is it? What is its actual outcome? The word. What is the actual outcome? The concept. The actual outcome is that it is immoral for white people to have well-being. That's the outcome. Anything you do as a white person that supports, endorses our well-being, meaning putting an end to our victimization, they will classify as this consummate evil that they call racism. So its actual functional definition is that it is immoral for white people to have well-being. That's why it is such a powerful weapon for anti-whites of all races. If Trump doesn't win the primary, ask first, last, should we still vote Republican? I don't think that will happen. And if it does, though, we'll figure out what we have to do at that time. I mean, some polls show him 70% in the lead. Somebody says here, Israel is called racist, yet they're doing just fine. Now, this is a great example of illogic. In other words, the statement is illogical. Are you able to see how it's illogical? Think about it for a minute. Who says that Israel is racist? If you accept the premise that it's a ubiquitous notion, then you have to contend with the rest of the sentence. But it's not a ubiquitous notion. Very few people will say that Israel is racist. You might say it. Other J-Spergs out there who think that you can take this ring of Sauron away from anti-whites and then wield it against them, you might say it. But every time you say the word racist, you invoke in every audience member that hears you or reads you the specter of white people harming innocent non-white people through various means. Every single time. What are you going to say? J-Spergs will often ally themselves with other people who irrationally hate all Jewish people on the basis of their birth. And so they'll find allies in other races, like some Arabs, for example. Certainly not all. And they'll say, probably point to them and say, well, they say that they're racist too. So this idea that, saying that Israel is racist and they're doing just fine is like saying that you can just go occupy a $35 million apartment in New York City because a rich person can do it. I mean, it's so illogical for somebody of my level of IQ. It's like I'm speaking to a cockroach. It's like a cockroach has sat up on its hind legs and tried thinking out for the first time. And I'm not gonna say that originally came from you. You're probably just repeating what some idiot said out there. You should be able to just drive off in a Lamborghini with a woman who's a 10 because other people can do it and they're doing just fine. And also concluding there, as you can see how many levels there are in texture, that the money is what does it rather than the value provided to customers, to clients, to etc., either themselves as the actor who's providing the value or relatives that have passed the money on down to them, or they're thieves that have just stolen it. I mean, I don't know why more people don't just say, I can't operate on my mother's brain because I'm not a neurosurgeon, but the neurosurgeon can. And so I'm going to let him do it. Just stick with things that keep failing. You're going to go far, friend. You'll go real far. Oh, I missed some of the message that Pants said. Oh, yeah. So Pants' full messenger, he's a great example of a hero redeemed, because he had fallen into the trap that so many others fall into, because it's just like this relentless idiocy. And it's so superficial and so one-dimensional, and serves your selfish individualism. But he was able to hear what we say in service to white well-being, and he was able to identify that is what's in tune with my actual spirit. That's what I wanted to do from the beginning. So many of these people who get caught up in this nonsense, they get trapped. That's what they end up saying, either explicitly or in so many words to me. This is what I actually wanted. This is what I actually feel. This actually is a series of tools that enable me to put an end to our victimization, which is what I actually want. Well done, sir. Thank you for that. Irish Nick is here. Great to see you. Peter's son is here. Owning Anti-White Goblin says he made the mistake of using the word racist today, and he's really annoyed with himself. That's all right, man. We're all in a process of reclaiming our lives. Why don't we go ahead and watch a little bit of King Dice, and then we will see what you all, if there are any financial gifts. And
NASCAR is concerned that there are too many white people working in the racing industry, so they've launched the NASCAR Diversity Internship Program, open to college students who are a sophomore or above with a 3.0 GPA and who are not white. This directly from their website. The NASCAR Diversity Internship Program is a paid internship that seeks diverse undergraduate and graduate college students, code word for less white people, or in this case, no white people, to contribute to the fast-paced NASCAR industry. NDIP provides practical, unique, hands-on experience in a variety of fields vital to the sport and business operations. Program requirements: be a member of one or more of the following races or ethnic minority classifications: Black or African American, American Indian. Say, which I thought that was politically incorrect, offensive to them. Aren't they supposed to be called Native Americans now? Whoever wrote this is going to have to be sent to a re-education camp to learn the proper terminology. Or Alaska Native. Let me decipher this culture Marxism for you. An Eskimo. That means an Eskimo. An Asian, Latino or Hispanic, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander. Wouldn't it be easier if they just said no whites allowed? Because that's really what they mean. They're especially concerned.
And that is what Best Buy recently said. They just outright said no whites. You know, for decades and decades and decades, they've been doing what NASCAR is doing now. Increasingly, because of the incremental success of anti-whiteism, they'll just be able to say no whites. No whites.
That there are too many white drivers. So NASCAR and Rev Racing reveal the 2023 Drive for Diversity driver development class. But if you're white, you can participate in this class, but only if you're a woman. I guess we shouldn't expect anything less from an organization that apologized for not celebrating LGBTQ people enough. There's plenty more to come in this video, so stay tuned. But just a heads up, the Wanted for President shirt has been updated with the official Donald Trump mugshot. So order yours from markdice.com or click the link in the description below. Matt Walsh tweeted the obvious that someone with standing needs to sue over this. That's the only way it stops. And Stephen Miller, who heads up the America First Legal Foundation, which is suing businesses for their anti-whiteism, responded.
Okay, so Stephen Miller is Jewish, and unless I'm wrong, somebody can correct me. And he's suing over anti-whiteism. Now, what if there were so many white people that, I mean, far more than today, that are willing to say that we object to our victimization on the basis of our birth? There wouldn't be one Stephen Miller. There would be scores and scores of them. And they could all be pursuing their own enrichment and have no concern really for white people. I'm not saying that's Stephen Miller's position. We can assume that he loves Western civilization. He wants it to stay the way it is, or be more Western. Not roll back in time, but be more Western. But just imagine if white people by the millions were saying no more anti-whiteism, let's put an end to that. How many lawyers would there be that would be interested in seeking that personal enrichment to file those suits? I mean, when you're right, you're right.
Report unlawful discrimination at 1-877-AFL-5454. And I will be calling them to report Google for their anti-whiteism with their new Black Genius Academy.
The Black Genius Academy is a tech career navigation platform designed specifically for you, the aspiring Black innovator.
Now, does Google have anything like that for white guys? Nope. We are the only people, white males, are the only people that can be socially persecuted and discriminated against, and it's considered moral, and legally discriminated against, even though there are going to be lawsuits filed. And we know what's going to end up happening with the vast majority of it. Every now and again, there'll be victories like with Starbucks, but keep your eye on the ball when those kind of victories happen, because there are almost always appeals, and on appeal, we lose.
Like the Black Genius Academy can help create a more inclusive and welcoming environment for Black people in technology.
Inclusive is a meme pathogen. It's an anti-whiteism. It means fewer white people. The all black program, that's going to be more inclusive. Do you see? I mean, open your eyes.
In order to thrive in this world, period, one must be audacious. One must
apparently violate the Civil Rights Act and discriminate against white people. And of course, they turned off.
And remember, the violation of the Civil Rights Act and discriminating against white people been going on for generations.
Off the comments, but not when they first posted it. They were reading the comments, and then people were pointing out how obvious and blatant this anti-whiteism is, and so they did what every channel does to try to silence criticism. They turned it off. Stephen Miller from the America First Legal Foundation is currently suing Progressive Auto Insurance for their patently unlawful anti-whiteism for offering $25,000 grants to black-owned businesses only. And you probably heard about the white regional manager at Starbucks who won a $25 million judgment because she was fired as a scapegoat after some black people were arrested for loitering because, well, that's against law, and they thought they were above the law, so they didn't buy anything when the manager asked them, what are you guys doing? Just hanging out here. And so they were arrested, and then they had to scapegoat her, so thankfully she sued. And thankfully others are following Stephen Miller's lead because a conservative activist named Edward Bloom has a nonprofit organization, and they are suing what's called the Fearless Fund because they only invest in black businesses. So the liberal media is quite upset about this. The Washington Post is complaining they invest in black women. A lawsuit claims it's discrimination. That's because it is. Imagine going to get a loan or a round of investments for your business.
This is what I have gone to get loans and been denied, while a non-white friend of mine with worse, I had better credit. Their credit was not as good as mine. And we could go on, got the loan from the exact same bank, the exact same loan officers. And it was a loan that was going to be secured by the bank. In other words, they were going to freeze all of the money that was loaned to me in my account. And then I would just pay them. And they still wouldn't do that. This is everywhere. It's been going on for generations. It's why so many white people are down and out, committing suicide, white males, on fentanyl, on drugs, given up. This is the reason. So it is totally moral for us to say no more of this.
And being denied because you're white. And since the anti-whiteism has gotten so systemic and Stephen Miller is now suing businesses for their discrimination, some brand name conservatives are finally getting brave enough to, well, stand up for white people. Charlie Kirk, of all people, tweeted out, "Whiteness is great. Be proud of who you are."
We have to make sure that he and Dice know not to use whiteness. It is a meme pathogen. It is meant to undermine us. We create Western civilization. I explained that on Sunday. But it's a good, going in the right direction. Charlie Kirk, going in the right direction. Say, Western civilization is great. Western culture that white people produce is great. Be proud of who you are.
Christopher Rufo, who is Conservative Inc.'s critical race theory expert, who won't use the term anti-whiteism and won't admit that critical race theory is anti-whiteism and that discrimination against Asians is only collateral damage. He countered.
Gotta love King Dice. Collateral damage, just like we teach. I love it.
Signaled Charlie Kirk saying, "What do you think about this rhetorical move?" and then replied in a bunch of comments denouncing him. Christopher Rufo, while he does some great work, is firmly opposed to white collectivism or white identity politics or white identity in general, which is the idea of white people basically standing up for themselves as an ethnic group.
You'll notice that, you don't even have to explain it as this like racial politics or anything like this. It's just white people who are tired of us being victimized, and we're not going to have it anymore. Christopher Rufo, as I understand, is white, but has a non-white wife and children. And very often, white people that have, not all the time, we have some epic champions here who have non-white wives and children, and they are saying, no more anti-whiteism, no more victimizing white people on the basis of their birth. But you'll see sometimes people like this, you have to look to what's behind it. Like, why would you say no to the discrimination against people based on their birth? You would certainly object to it for Hispanic people, but why not white people? Well, take a look at his life decisions. And in his mind, he believes that he cannot stand up for white people and against anti-whiteism. Now, that's not true. But part of the reason why he thinks that he can't, I would bet, is J-Sperg's Nazi LARPers.
to preserve their values, their culture, and to promote their interests, just like every other ethnic group does and is allowed to do and is celebrated for doing. Charlie Kirk's tweet kicked off quite a frenzy on Twitter, with many conservative pundits denouncing the idea that it's okay to be white, while Jack Posobiec, who has over 2 million Twitter followers, one of the most popular personalities on the platform, said, white people are the only ones who are supposed to hate their own race in order to be considered good people. Whiteness is the only culture identified by those outside of it, and not those who are part of it. And white culture is the only one where hatred of it is considered a virtue. And
exactly. It's the only group that hating it and victimizing it is considered moral, virtuous. Where does that come from? The ideology of anti-whiteism, which is psychological warfare. We really have to make sure, though, that they don't fall into the trap of saying whiteness.
a few minutes later, he followed that up by saying, Mark Dice is right about anti-whiteism. Well, thanks.
That is absolutely epic. That is glorious. That is totally glorious. Jack Posobiec, we have people who are showing love to Posobiec and have been for a very long time, years, in his chats and dropping these concepts. And so he's feeling it coming up from the ground, coming up. It's just sort of in the air. These concepts, white erasure, anti-whiteism, Western kind, etc. He's feeling it coming up. It's in the air. And then you have this consummate performer, entertainer, educator in King Dice here, and he starts saying anti-whiteism. You see, it's exactly as I said it would unfold.
Thanks for noticing, Jack, and let me know if you want an advanced copy of my new book, which comes.
But then what I end up having is people show up in the live chat, which is why I have to have these troll slayers in there. People showing up telling me how wrong I am. Really, think about that. How wrong I am. And the people who are saying how wrong I am, they look like this guy who just murdered these people. That's what they look like. Glass chin, almost invisible, or neck beard. And they'll show up to tell me how wrong I am. And then when they're not winning the argument and they're not persuading people to leave my community, which they also do, by the way, they're at that all the time. And we've even found their chat groups where they're talking about strategizing about how to steal people away from our community. When they're not having success there, they turn around and they say, "Oh, don't you know anything under the sun? Jason is a drug addict, and he has a harem, and he's busily impregnating the harem 24 hours a day. He's got nothing else to do. But then he just leaves them. He hangs them out to dry." Total asininity. Just lies that they think will turn you away from me and Team White Wellbeing. Let's hear more about the great success.
Out here in a few months. And just a few weeks ago, Matt Walsh picked up a new word in his vocabulary that I may or may not have had something to do with.
They accuse him of racism, but it's their own racism.
Let me just point out, Mark Dice and the rest of Team White Wellbeing. If somebody just says something, and this is why I had so little effect until we had Team White Wellbeing. If somebody just explains something to another person, this is, I find it's most painful for me, that I can explain something to someone and show them A to B to C to Z. I can show them the whole thing, how it's logical, how it's rational, and then empirically show how it has worked. That doesn't motivate the vast majority of people. Unfortunately, to my chagrin, what motivates them is seeing it sort of come out of the fog around them. It's here, and then it's there, and it's here, and then it's there. Then they can feel like they can move toward it. Then they become part of something rather than having to be, the point of the spear, having to be the vanguard. Then they're just part of it. Takes a lot less courage to do that. And you'll see more and more people that will use anti-whiteism are less and less courageous. That will use white erasure are less and less courageous. Eventually, your grandmammy, who has no courage at all, let's just imagine she's a woman with no courage, and or someone else in your life who has no courage, and they'll be suddenly out there at the barbecue, anti-whiteism, white erasure, Western kind, anti-white. Suddenly it'll be everywhere. They'll be saying it everywhere. Then you'll know. Once the most cowardly are able to do it, then you'll know it has arrived.
Anti-whiteism.
And it looks like I also rubbed off on Carol Swain, who is a retired political science professor that I may or may not have had something to do with.
They accuse him of racism, but it's their own racism. They're anti-whiteism.
And it looks like I also rubbed off on Carol Swain, who is a retired political science professor at Vanderbilt University.
We had our friend Dr. Carol Swain on a little over a month now, and she shared with us before anyone else the title of her new book, before it was even available, The Adversity of Diversity. And she looks wonderful on the cover, does she not? And I got this pre-order before it was even available. Got shipped to me first. I have the book, and I'm going to dig into it first chance I can. It's looking like a great read, and we're so happy that she ended up saying there is a word for discrimination against white people. It's anti-whiteism. And she even corrects herself when she almost calls it anti-whiteness. Have a listen.
Who is also using the proper terminology and is, well, a fan of mine. I'll just leave it at that.
Those people that argue that it's impossible for blacks to be racist against whites, that's ludicrous. The first thing I'd ask, like, what are you smoking? Of course you can be racist, and that would be a form of anti-whiteism. But now the dictionary, actually has a definition for anti-whiteism: prejudice or discriminating against or hostile towards white people.
Well, Carol, that's probably an older dictionary, because I'm sure that they've dumped that word down the memory hole in the newer editions. And let's not forget one of the reasons.
Actually, it's coming back into dictionaries. Anti-whites had deleted it from almost all dictionaries, had taken it out, because if you don't have the tools to think in your own defense, then you cannot think in your oown defense. If they take the actual tools away, then you end up with J-Sperging.
Tulsi Gabbard left the Democrat Party is because of their anti-whiteism.
Who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism.
Even Anna Kasparian over at the Young Turks, the Young Jerks YouTube channel, the biggest leftist.
Now we want her to say just anti-whiteism, not anti-white racism. That's a step in the right direction, though.
This channel on the entire platform has had enough.
I'm now super hesitant to believe accusations of racism toward people until I've done a full look at the story and investigation myself, because it's now used to label anyone who says anything that is considered out of line.
That's right.
Now, she's now having a problem. I explained this before when she said this, because anti-whites need fewer and fewer white women to be a traitor to Western kind, white people, in order to achieve anti-white objectives. And so now they are increasingly including white women in that victimization. And so now she's feeling that pressure. And we've talked with other white women who, over the past 5-10 years, have really started to feel the burn, the sting of the victimization that white males have been feeling for many generations now. And now they're suddenly like, what the hell? I don't get to benefit from this anti-whiteism anymore. I'm going to object to it.
Right. And as Thomas Sowell famously stated, when people get used to preferential treatment, equal treatment seems like discrimination. Oh, just wait until my new book comes out in a few months. Some of the topics are so hot that I can't even hint at them here. But until then, I'm sure you want the greatest t-shirt ever made. My new and improved Wanted for President shirt featuring Donald Trump's authentic.
All right. So there he is with his brand new shirt with Donald Trump for president. Absolutely. We may or may not have any voices that are near Donald Trump, President Trump. And if we can influence the use of anti-whiteism, that would be a supernova for Western civilization. We're working at it. Team White Wellbeing, these champs are at work, and they're wonderful people. They're doing fantastic things, and I salute them. If it were not for Team White Wellbeing, I would still be fighting with J-Spergs and Nazi LARPers and people who just want to look at data and talk about data all day long and say, look at this group is more prone to this or more prone to that. I would still be arguing with all those people, and I'd be saving somebody here or saving somebody there or somebody here. But that's nothing compared to what Team White Wellbeing has done. So I want you to be able to be a part of that. I want you to take the step up. The links are below. You can reach out to West. That's Biospirit of the West. He's in the description below, the outreach team. Become a part of Team White Wellbeing, and you can make a big influence on yourself, and then begin to access latent abilities that you have you didn't even realize that you had until you started treating yourself for poisonous ideas. You can do that. and you can begin to change the world that we live in for the better. This is all changing it, our world that we live in, for the better. The battle is not won on the streets. Forget about controlling streets. This is so stupid. It's like saying that you want to fight. Who is the Russian boxer, heavyweight? I even can't remember the guy's name. Oh, I almost just had it. That held the title forever, and he also has like a master's degree, right? So let's say that guy. That's like saying that you're in a competition with him, and so you're going to get into the boxing ring with him. But wait a second. He really kicks ass in the boxing ring. Why would you get in there with him? Why would you contest him in that environment? Please, let smarter people do the thinking for you. If you don't get it, or if you're making these really bad mistakes, just turn it over to your mother's brain neurosurgeon and let him do the work. All right, man. That is what it is. Let me look at what you all are saying. Over here on Entropy, it is working. Thank the good Lord. And we're going to be getting out of here in just a moment. I hadn't intended to be on for a long time. I got a bunch of other things going on. And but this is, once again, we're dealing with these monsters. And something has to be said about it so that people can know, so that you all can be empowered and you can take it to the folks in your world. Kinfolk says, I used to get so angry at you, Jason, when I was a white negative loser. But I learned you were right. Going free is inevitable. God bless you for saying that, Ken. God bless you for saying that. That's a splendid testimonial. Thank you. So talking about good people who are redeemed, and now they can live their lives in love for white well-being, putting an end to our victimization for the good of everyone who lives in the West. And your life is going to be better as a consequence. I promise you that. It is for everybody who is true to the practice. Very simple, very straightforward. Everybody who's true to it improves their lives. We have countless testimonials about that, and all of them are beautiful. Thank you so much, Kinfolk. Another reason why the J-Spergs and Nazi LARPers hate yours truly and tell so many lies about me is because I take away, this community takes away the only intelligent, productive people in those communities. That's why. Because they go, oh my God, there's an actual way that is in harmony with my being and what I want in the world. I'm out of here. Cool Papa J Magic says, Mark is a great hero, but credit goes to no white guilt. I appreciate it, man. And Marcus, you're right. He's doing amazing, absolutely amazing work. King Dice, that's why he has that name. Spike says, I'm glad to see you give Mark Dice some credit for his progression and how he's helping the anti-white program. I guess you mean like against the anti-white programming. Yes. Nice to see and hear. Absolutely. He's doing colossal work. You know, the guy's got like 2 million subs and he reaches a lot, and he's normal. He's a normal guy. And so that's what we are. We're normal. We're the normal white population, but we are extraordinary in our decision to stand up against this thought trap that the anti-white narrative traps white people in. And then they try to drag everybody down into that morass to ruin our lives and then go out and murder innocent people. What monsters. I just can't believe that anybody stays in those environments. Al Hengel says, Jason, if you could just check the comments, you'll see lots of support for Dice and you. Lots of activity by Team Jason, Team White Wellbeing. But thank you. That's nice. From the likes of Cool Papa J Magic, Elaine Sabatino, Cindy Ben, and more. Yeah, all those folks named, total heroes. Thank you all so much. And people need to be recognized for their contributions, because that's the white thing to do. That's the right thing to do, is to celebrate each other. There's no supreme leader. We're all leaders, and we're all writing. If you want to be, you can author in our book yourself in as a hero, so that every moment of your life that you live is glorious, and it will make you a better person, a richer person, spiritually, mentally, and maybe even financially. Victorian time traveler, there's another enormous champion. Escape, another enormous champion. Western Essence, hello. Along with, looks like Lacey is here. And Forrest Dump, hello. That's a funny name. I like it. Franklin responding to Western Essence. Sock is here, hello to you, saying that they want you, I guess we're talking about the J-Spergs, Nazi LARPers, to name them. Now, if you don't know, name them is to be a J-Sperg. It's that you just bellyache about Jewish people on the basis of their birth as in evil incarnate, and that somehow will magically, Deus ex machina, harm Jewish people, and then that somehow, God of the gaps, will cause white people to be better off. Absolutely not. The only people it harms are the people who are doing the belly aching about Jews. That's the only people it harms. Their lives get ruined. You don't do anything to help white people, and then you have, like the case in Florida, a law immediately passed that harms all white people. And Franklin goes on to say another one of the baseless allegations against me and against us, that we're discarding the relevance of race. How does that anybody believe that? You know, Franklin, I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? How could anyone believe that? We're specifically saying that we want white well-being and an end to the victimization of our people. How are you discarding the relevance of race? I mean, it's just obviously another baseless allegation to try to turn people away from the work that we do. It's one of the arguments that Nazi LARPers and J-Spergs will make. Oh, they just ignore the relevance of race. And so don't you care? Don't you think race is real? And then they're like, well, yeah, I do. So I'm not going to go over there and listen to that Jason guy and those Team White Wellbeing people. Yeah. All right. We have the great Slots over here. $5 financial gift on Cash App. Thank you, good sir. He says, anti-whiteism created this monster. Saying white well-being is evil. Yep, you're right. Anti-whiteism created this monster. This guy who went and murdered these people. Created all those monsters who were out there playing the antag in their story. I actually had one guy show up. I mean, it's so common. It happens all the time. He showed up and made this statement, this like paragraph long statement in which he talks about other people and is talking about these other people from the position centering Jewish people. So he's talking about other groups of people, centering the Jewish ethnicity, the race, the people, centering them, and going so far as to calling everyone who is not Jewish by this very ugly term that is supposed to represent everybody who's not Jewish. I objected being called a Gentile, and I told them at church, I'm white. I'm not inside. The world is not split up between Jewish people and everybody else. We are a people. We have a story. So I was fine with everything that wasn't anti-white at church. So much of it was because Christianity's been defeated by anti-whiteism. Because Christianity was a religion or is a religion, and anti-whiteism is psychological warfare. There was never a chance. But I objected there. So why would I ever adopt the slurs, the gross slurs meant for people who were not Jewish? Seriously. I mean, how much more evidence do you have to give? Klitschko. Red Dog is right. Yeah, Klitschko. Man, was he something? He hit people, and it was like serious trucks hitting them. Slots is right. God bless you, Slots. Okay, let me check on Subscribestar just because I said that I would, and make sure. Okay, there's nothing over there, so I didn't miss anybody. That'll be a new place that we check out from now on. I really want to do this. Let's see if I can, before we get out of here, before we get out of here, it's worth it. Maybe even here just at the end, because it is the end of the roll-in coming up. Is that where I did it? No, that's not. Let's see. Go there, here. And then I think I have planted these things. I thought I did. What the hell? Oh, Bing. All right. We got it figured out. I have to wear all the caps. Got to do all the tech work behind the scene. Klitschko. Dr. Frost is here. Great to see you. Okay, so we didn't miss anybody over there. Over here on Entropy, we have Open Borders for Israel is the guy's name. $3 financial gift. Check out what's happening in California, Jason. So this is a link. I don't know what it is. There's so much going on. Oh, wow. This is a link for a news item that says Parents Slam California School for holding No Whites Allowed Kids Playdate. For years now, I've been sharing such stories. It's all over the country. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate the financial gift and that piece of news. Elementary school has slammed officials. Parents at a California elementary school has slammed officials for sanctioning a play day for kids that essentially segregated by race and excluded white children. Yep, that's a victimization that it is totally moral and righteous for us to say enough is enough. Spartan Lambda says no white guilt with $5 financial gift. Thank you for that, Spartan. I really appreciate it. And then Open Borders for Israel back with another $3, bringing the financial gifts up from him to $6. Thank you. Jason, can you try and get on Professor Amy Wax? The name is not ringing a bell at the moment. She already hosted Jared Taylor on universities, and I think she would be receptive to the concepts of white well-being. Well, do you know more about her than I do? Because I know nothing. Maybe you try to be the one that makes that connection, or if somebody else who's hearing me now or in replay knows her and can make that connection, I'll happily go and speak about anti-whiteism, white well-being. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention as well. All right. Over here on D Live, we have, it looks like Cockney Nut Job. That's a great name. Financial aid gifts, a diamond of cryptocurrency over there. God bless you. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so very much. These people who financially gift white well-being are clearly delineating themselves, drawing a dividing line between themselves and these Nazi LARPers and these people who are what we call white negative, who just say negative things about non-white races all the time, which inevitably ends up in monstrous things happening, like with this fat loser, this J-Sperg. Thank you very much. And we have Magnus over there. He's saying, God bless. Thank you so much. And some stickers. We got some cute little frogs and dragon throwing fire. Very cool. Thank you all very much. I don't know when a sticker is sent. Is that what says a sticker on D Live? When a sticker is sent, I don't even know exactly. That just means that image, that sticker goes up on the live chat, right? Nothing else. I don't want to be missing anything that I should be thanking people for. Hello to the people on Rumble. No financial gifts over there. I don't know if you can give financial gifts at Rumble, but a thank you over there, and tag me if you would like to pose a question or a comment. Over here on Odyssey, we have a financial gift of 5 library tokens, which is their cryptocurrency, from Who'da Thunk It. Thank you, Who'da Thunk It. And he writes, if you could change the definition of a word society-wide, you can, at that point, have also killed it. Killing a concept with shame, guilt, is easier than changing its meaning. Precisely. Precisely. What we can't do, and this is one of the things that I would get into debates that I would win, and then nobody would care, about creating words that were unknown or weren't immediately understandable. When some people would say that you could do that, and I would say you can't do that unless you control the means of the dissemination, like from the top down. What you can do is what we've done. When I got started with anti-whiteism in '94, those words, as the people in this community know, for me, they weren't in the dictionary at home, and they weren't at the library dictionaries. So, and I still have the dictionary from home. I eventually came to, as I thought about what the concepts needed to do, and there were a lot of things that the concepts needed to do. One of the things that they needed to do was be immediately recognizable, even though people had not seen or read them before or seen their definition. And so part of my testing was to go into the environments I was in, both white and blue collar environments, and to use these words colloquially and to see how people responded. Did they understand? And they understood every single time. And more importantly, without me having to describe it, more importantly, they became excited about a concept that described all of that victimization, all of those people, even though they have many different names for themselves. There you had it, a concept to describe it. And so that's how I knew that those were going to be the anti-white and anti-whiteism were the central pillars of undermining the psychological warfare that is anti-whiteism. All right, we're going to have, unfortunately, we're going to have more days like this. We're going to have more days where it's anti-whites, more days where it's anti-whites who call themselves by various antag titles. We refer to many of them as J-Spergs, who will be doing more awful things. not the least of which to me, with all of the endless lying and misrepresenting me. And we'll have to revisit it. I've been doing it for a lot longer than you have, so having to put up with it for a lot longer than you have. So we just have to keep pushing and keep stating our position again and again, that what we do is virtuous and beautiful and must be done. It's worthy of lives lived in service to that goal. And that what they are, J-Spergs, Nazi LARPers, or whatever, they are not us. They don't represent white people. They don't care about our victimization. They only care about harming non-white people. Either, I mean, at a bare minimum, harming their reputation. And you say to me, but Jason, they do it to us. And what happens to us? We're dehumanized. We can be victimized. Socially, morally, legally victimized as a consequence of it. So that's what you're trying to do to non-white people with all of your slanders and slurs. There's a big difference. You are not providing the value that earns the money that buys the Lamborghini and the number 10 model girl, and that buys the $52 million condo in New York City. You don't have any of that. So it's impudent and childish and inane to say they do it and we should do it or be able to do it. Grow up. Stop being so immoral. Red Dog says, and now Tyson Fury, who's even whiter and defeated Klitschko. Yeah, he's a hell of a puncher as well. All right. Oh, I see. Caitlin just told me that Deborah in the live chat is saying that Amy Wax is a law professor at University of Pennsylvania. She has been very outspoken about anti-whiteism. The university is trying to get rid of her and no tenure for her. And she's Jewish. Well, if she'd like to talk to me, I'll talk to her. If she opposes anti-whiteism, then we're on the right side of this conflict. Yeah. So if you know her, reach out. Owning anti-white goblins, making a great point. Pushing what's called the JQ is like saying Satan is a good guy to the Spanish during the Inquisition. Yes, that's exactly what it is. So here's the question. What group do you want to be in? You could be in this community with the likes of me and these people who are obviously beautiful, wonderful champions, or you could be in a community like this. Do you want this, or do you want this? What's it going to be? This or this? This or this? There's only so much time left. Things are getting worse all the time. I want you to make the right decision.
Some folks call me a rambling man. I do a lot of thumbing and kicking cans, and it wouldn't do an ounce of good to call my name. But Daddy's name wasn't Willie Woodrow, and I wasn't born and raised in no ghetto, just a white man looking for a place to do my thing. Well, I'm out to buy